Cool. So I'm here with David. We're discussing his book, Healing Chakra Yoga. We're going to talk about chapter 1, which is all about breath and oxygen. And David, could you explain, help us understand the mechanics of how oxygen and breath, how it relates to healing?
Okay, fundamentally, oxygen is our primary food. It's required by every cell in the body. And for every molecule of food that you eat, you need a molecule of oxygen to process that, to digest it, to liberate energy. So there are 50 trillion cells that all need this constantly. And the more active you are, the more you need, obviously. So your health depends on the oxygen level, and then in the process of metabolism, we create carbon dioxide, which becomes toxic to us. So we need to eliminate that to quite an extent. So the in-breath brings in the oxygen, the exhalation gets rid of the carbon dioxide. This is part of life's process. And we're programmed in to do this all the time, and it depends on what you're doing. If you're active and your muscles are working, your CO2 level rises, and you automatically, the heart begins pumping faster, and you start breathing more deeply. This is automatic, but because we have a lifestyle where we're not active, we sit, our brains are still active, but the brain does not produce the same response. So we end up getting into a stressful position, too much CO2, and things go downhill. I can go on and on with that.
Right. And you did also write it, I can't remember where I found it, but I think the statistic was only humans are only breathing 10% of their lung capacity?
Yeah, that's a general measurement. People use 10% of their lung capacity in normal life. Now, if you go out jogging, you're going to be increasing that to like 80% or something. Mm-hmm. With yoga practice, we go to 100%. Mm-hmm. And when you are doing something active, your muscles are the ones demanding the oxygen. So that's where the oxygen goes. So exercise is good to that point of it. It's working the muscles. But while you're doing that, your liver and your pancreas and other body parts, organs and glands are not getting all the oxygen that they need. So in yoga practice, the emphasis on pranayama, the breathing aspect, take in more breaths, breathe deeper, consciously do that. In fact, there's slow motion exercises called the dundalls that you're familiar with, where you're doing the exercises in slow motion, you're concentrated on feeling the muscles, and you're bringing the energy there, and at the end, you stop and you continue breathing to bring the oxygen back into the glands and organs, which essentially are supporting everything else in your body. Mm-hmm. Life support system runs on oxygen.
On oxygen, and I think you wrote also that you can change your brain chemistry and your body chemistry through breath alone.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things, is changing brain chemistry. And again, my function, my purpose of getting into yoga in the beginning wasn't because I had health problems or I wanted to exercise. It was because I was studying these things and reading a little bit about states of consciousness and mind. And a hitchhiker I picked up gave me a little hit of LSD, which made me see the energy world. And I realized, wow, my perception completely changed and I was seeing everything differently. And I'd never had such an experience. Mm-hmm. And that motivated me to go to India and find out more about states of consciousness. Because the yoga books talked about higher states, meditational states. I had no idea what that meant at the time. So this little journey happened to be strawberry acid that the Beatles had a song about. I thought that was a stupid song until I had the experience. And now I understand what they're singing about.
Was there a specific thing during your trip that it made the connection that there's, because, you could see visuals and whatever else, but what was it about that trip that made you realize that this is actually a veil, that an unveiling of something. That how did you marry it with yoga and breath and health?
Well, because I was studying quantum physics and science and energy and yoga and these things and everything you were talking about, the greater sphere of knowledge and a higher state of consciousness and the energy thing. It was always fascinating me, and I could see energy.
You experienced
I
it.
saw the energy everywhere. I could see it and feel it, and I saw the auras around plants, and wow, I never noticed this. I'd never smoked anything or done anything in my life, so it was a life-changing experience. At the beginning of my travels, where I was going traveling, I wasn't planning to go to India until that.
Mm-hmm.
I was okay, this is really interesting, how you can change, because I had an interest in psychology through teenage years. I was totally disillusioned by the university's perception of psychology. I was interested in the mind, and they were just talking about rats and statistics.
Yeah.
Anyway, that motivated me to go and find out more about brain chemistry. So at Ananda Ashram, Swami Gitananda was fundamentally, he was a yogi who breathed all day long, slept very little, and dynamically taught all his classes 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. Impressive. But he taught us how to breathe. It took 2 weeks of learning just how to breathe and then applying that to all of the postures and positions, to the meditation techniques, to going into deep relaxation. So breath was a fundamental tool, and this is Pranayama Yoga. It's a whole science or form of yoga in itself.
And that's what you did with us during the first week of our 500-hour training. We just did a lot of breath work.
Yeah.
And even as simple as it was, there was huge transformation. Like mentally, I felt really light and happy, euphoric. So you're saying through the breath and using your oxygen, you can get to these states of seeing what's beyond, I guess, beyond energy, the veil. Yeah. Well, just the veil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was my direction and purpose and aim of going to India. I had no health concerns really, but I wanted to understand how that happened. And Swami Vivekananda kind of explained it. It's all in your brain chemistry anyway. And when you're taking a substance, whether it's ayahuasca or LSD or any of the psychedelic things that are all over in nature, it triggers a release of different brain chemistry, including DMT, which has since that time been researched a lot, and realizing this is a hallucinogenic chemical that's manufactured in the pineal gland. Mm-hmm. And this is what we learn to do.
And it's our right. We have our right to do this with our bodies.
Yeah, it's legal.
And it's legal. Why do you think that we have been so detached from this other ability, from being able to... Is it just simply suffocating? Well, I know it's a loaded question. But
I mean, our education system is not focused on us. It's focused on consumerism, getting people to get a good job so they can be consumers. And that doesn't include your health, because your health is another profit moneymaker, yeah.
So how does being in that state what does it have to do with healing?
In that state, when you're in a happy, joyful state, your immune system is also joyful and happy and functions better. When you go into depression, negativity, worry, and fear, the immune system worries and goes in fear and becomes dysfunctional.
Shuts down.
There's a total, absolute link and connection between the neuronal energy network and the immune system. Mm-hmm. They're totally connected and respond to things together.
Which your next chapter is about the psychology. Which is a whole other thing.
So back to the oxygen. Mm-hmm. I mentioned when you're using muscles and you're active, the muscles demand the oxygen and they create carbon dioxide. So you got to keep breathing deep to keep that going. Now the surplus of oxygen, if there's any left over, goes to the immune system. So when you're active, dynamic, and digesting and doing things, your immune system is kind of waiting. But if your oxygen level is high enough, then it can also function. Yeah. Normally, because people only breathe what they have to. I said, when you're dynamic and active, you produce carbon dioxide. It makes your heart go faster. It makes you breathe deeper, only as much as required by the muscles. So the interior glands and organs aren't actually getting everything they need, which is why you end up getting quite tired if you do a lot. And then the white blood cells and the whole autoimmune system gets what's left over after that. And this is why healing is usually connected to resting and relaxing. When you're not doing anything else, the oxygen then goes to the autoimmune system, to the white blood cells. And if there's something going on in your body, there's a battle going on, the white blood cells are dynamic and active. They're out there killing mutant cells and destroying bacteria, hunting down viruses. It's very active, and they need the oxygen to do that. So the breathing, when you're breathing deeper than you have to, going way beyond the 10% normal, the immune system is just on top of it.
So something just as simple as changing our breath, because most of us are breathing shallow. Yeah. We're not expelling enough carbon dioxide, which is poison. So on top of not taking enough oxygen, we're carbon dioxide too much.
Intoxicating yourself.
Yeah. And this goes in the whole subject of alkaline versus acidic bodies. So just to make sure that we're on the same track. So we talked about how oxygen is really important and how the mechanics of it. It's in all of our cells. We have 1 trillion cells, which are made of 50 trillion cells. And we need the oxygen. We only have 10% that we're taking in, so we're only functioning at 10%. So now that we understand that we need more oxygen to function at 100, just to get our whole vehicle moving, can we talk about understanding alkaline versus acidic bodies when it comes with the oxygen needing our bodies?
Automatically, when you have a high oxygen level in your bloodstream, your whole body is shifted into the alkaline state. Carbon dioxide is acidic. So it's right there. It totally depends on the amount of breath, oxygen getting into the bloodstream and the oxygen eliminated. I mean, you can take foods that are alkaline more than acid, and that's helpful, but every breath you take can change that balance.
Yeah.
And because most people are in oxygen deficit, they're automatically in an acidic state, which does not help the immune system.
And there was a study that said that if you are in an alkaline body, cancer cannot grow, right? So
that again goes back to studies done back almost a century ago. I'd say 1930s, so 90 years ago. Dr. Otto Warburg, and he got a Nobel Prize in medicine for doing this, for discovering that cancer cells don't live in a high oxygen environment. High oxygen is also alkaline. So just by raising your oxygen level and keeping it up, the cancer cells remain normal. They don't mutate into cancer cells,
right,
which is what they do when you're in deficit for a long time. The cells, in order to survive, because they can't get the oxygen, they mutate and change their own chemistry. So that their little mitochondria, the power cell, the powerhouse inside the cell, learns to just use sugar and without the oxygen and liberate energy from sugar. So if you have a high sugar diet and you're not breathing well, cancer just goes rampant.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, and there's a huge fad with being alkaline. The pH, people are getting alkaline water, and there's this thing called the Kagan. Have you heard about that? It filters your water. My point being is we have the access to do it ourselves just by breathing deeper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And and eating alkaline foods. Do we need a little acidity in our body? Is there such thing as a healthy balance, or should we try to be aiming towards pure alkaline? Or
well, we don't need to put in acidity.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's made when the cells are metabolizing. They're producing carbon dioxide, which is tilting over to the acidic side, and then it's rebalanced quickly with oxygen. The other aspect of cell metabolism also produces free radicals as a byproduct of a lot of metabolism. And if you have enough oxygen, and in yoga you learn about the prana effect, which is in nature you have oxygen molecules, 2 oxygen atoms going together, and they usually have extra electrons. Electron is the basis of energy. It's electricity. The flow of electrons in a copper wire is what we call electricity. We run on the same stuff, and we access it just by breathing deep in nature. Extra electrons go directly into the nervous system, and the oxygen goes into the bloodstream. This gives us 2 things. So the extra electron neutralizes free radicals immediately. If you don't have them, you have a buildup of free radicals. They're missing electrons, so they grab them from nearby cells, and those cells begin deteriorating. That's why free radicals are dangerous, not good for you. And so taking antioxidant tea is one of the solutions, but just taking the oxygen that's in nature with the prana automatically neutralizes.
And that's why they talk about the monks or, the ancient meditators going into caves or being in nature, that they choose nature to do their breathing because
likewise.
That's
why we're here in the jungle. Yeah.
So for those people that live in like San Francisco or in Egypt, Mohammed, what's up? How do they deal with their situation of where they're living? Like, do they get plants to bring into their home?
Well, I would if I had to be in Cairo.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in a tropical environment there. Everything grows, but the amount of pollution and industrialization consumes too much of the oxygen, and people don't have much left. And the city environment, the mechanical environment, the automobiles and metals all take the prana out of the air.
So this is a bigger issue than just simply breathing. Yeah.
So be outdoors, go somewhere where you got trees and something green, because we have this symbiotic relationship with all green plants. They take the carbon dioxide, they take the carbon, give us back the oxygen. This is our connection. And why we evolved and grew in nature and why we're here. This is where we become healthy, by getting back into this natural environment, and we have the connection. Also, nature is chill.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a high-stress place, Even if you don't like the bugs that you can hear in the background, they're part of nature too. They're happy. They're singing their song. It's happy for them to do that.
So it's imperative for us to take care of the earth, and in turn the earth takes care of us.
Yeah.
I know it's like kind of hippie. It's like, oh, take care of the earth, man. But really, it's just we're taking care of ourselves by doing that. So
it's quite egotistical.
All humans. So, okay, recapping again, we kind of learned the mechanics of breath, that we need oxygen in breathing to be at our highest vitality and to help with healing. And it's important to be at a more alkaline state than acidic for our bodies, which is just higher oxygen. Let's just assume we have all that going, we're living in nature, or we have access to high oxygen, we're breathing deeply and properly. Then you talk about the next step of healing is movement in the lymphatic system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
We'll go back to
so that we recap, we learn the mechanics of oxygen and breath, and how we need oxygen to survive, less carbon dioxide. So breathing deeper, how alkaline versus acidic body, how we want more of an alkaline body, so higher oxygen to help us battle any toxins or any disease coming into our bodies. Now let's just assume that we've been breathing deeply. We're in an environment that is providing high oxygen. The next step you wrote about in healing is movement in the lymphatic system. So can you explain a little bit of that?
Yeah, going back to what I said, up to like 100 years ago, when we were more active and doing things with our body instead of sitting at a desk so much, the movement itself creates circulation of the lymphatic fluid. Now, lymphatic fluid is the other system of liquid in our body. We're mostly liquid, and a lot of that is lymphatic fluid. It goes everywhere between the cells. It's kind of sweeping and cleaning out the body all the time and bringing the debris and whatever's there to be eliminated in the lungs, to the kidneys, to the colon, whatever. Sometimes back to the bloodstream to be recycled. But it's an important part of our being, and most people don't even know much about it. It only circulates when we're moving. We have a blood system that has a heart pumping it around. The lymphatic system doesn't have a pump. It requires that we move, and we're designed to move. We have feet, not roots. So we're set up for movement, and that's what circulates this fluid. And it moves around when we're moving. So we do a lot of moving in our Chakra Yoga system of postures, done with breath and moving. So the oxygen goes into the bloodstream, and then the movement is making sure that the bloodstream is distributing it right through the body. It's going out to the cells, through the lymphatic fluid, from the blood to the cells, which is kind of a go-between. And then this whole lymph system needs to circulate. It comes back through similar system of little tubes like veins and arteries. And then it goes through lymph nodes. The lymph node is a place where the fluid itself is scanned, assessed. There's white blood cells hanging out in there, and they're looking at what's coming through. And if there's anything toxic, triggers are sent. Hey, there's an invader. So the trigger goes back to the central thymus gland or the spleen or wherever the white blood cells are kept, and then you get a release of antibodies or killer T cells or whatever is required. You don't have to know all the details, but know that we have this amazing system that knows exactly what to do. And it depends on the circulation of this lymphatic fluid. This is how we have lymph nodes in here, various places all over the body. And up in here, when we do the upper section breath, we're pumping the lymphatic fluid through the lymph nodes, and from there it goes back into the bloodstream. Becomes part of the blood again, and then leaks out at some other area at the ends of the capillaries, goes back into the lymphatic system without the red blood cells. So we have this complete circulation, which is an important part of the immune system. The lymphatic system is very connected to lymphocytes, which is the name of the white blood cells.
So if we're only breathing at 10%, which means that our system is only functioning at 10%, we'll have a way more higher probability of continuing to get sick because we're not even giving ourselves enough medicine to circulate through our bodies, basically. And a lot of people aren't even moving.
And people are sitting, whatever job, and their brain is thinking. And your brain consumes a lot of oxygen, produces a lot of carbon dioxide, and you're not moving, so your heart will start pumping faster, but the breath doesn't get involved because you're not moving.
And then your body gets stressed because it feels like it's like under suffocation and you're in fight or flight mode, blah, blah, blah.
And the suffocation thing is a reality. It's called oxidative stress at the cellular level. The cells are suffocated, and they put out panic signals. And when you've got a small portion, 100 million cells putting out panic signals, you start to feel panic. You start to feel stress and anxiety.
Your adrenals get fatigued.
Yeah. The whole chain reaction of negativity here.
And feeding an acidic body that way as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll just, slow down, sit back, take a deep breath. I've been hearing more and more of that, even in movies and whatever these days. People say, take a deep breath. We should be doing this all day long, not taking a deep breath, but breathe more deeply. Yeah. And this is part of the training in yoga. You learn how to breathe. And the training I did was like 6 months from beginning to end, and I did it twice. And it was that amount of time where you're consciously breathing deeply many hours a day, it becomes a habit. Mm-hmm. You kind of get addicted to having this higher level of oxygen, to having your brain chemistry open up to see things in a more beautiful way.
Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah.
So you talk about, because I had that experience too during the training. I got addicted to breath. Like, it tasted good. It felt good. I unfortunately haven't.
And it's good for you.
And it's good for you.
Yeah.
I've never gotten to any states where I started seeing auras and things like that yet, but can you describe when you were doing this, when was the first time that you felt a significant shift in your body and your chemistry, where maybe you saw something or you felt elevated? Because naturally, by breathing and changing your brain chemistry, you're also pushing dopamine, and which is like the happy, the euphoric.
Yeah.
But is there a state above that that's almost like a...
Well, the psychedelic state.
Yeah. Did you...
Which I got to after the first 4 months at the ashram.
What happened?
Well, it was the end of the course, and most of the students left, and so did Swami and his team, and a few of us were left behind. So we just practiced all day long. And actually, I had a cup of coffee, which I had never drank before. Well, I did back in the 60s when I was working for the government. We had coffee breaks, a lot of them, government job. Anyway, I hadn't had coffee for a long time. And I had a cup of coffee, and I got into doing the breathing, lying down in relaxation, where you usually fall asleep. Most students, when it comes to Shavasana in the class, they just fall asleep. So after the coffee, I didn't feel like falling asleep. So I kept on breathing for like a half hour, 45 minutes, and felt really super energized. And when I got up and looked around, I was seeing things more like moving. Everything was kind of breathing with me, which is a psychedelic state. If you see everything fluctuating and moving, not stuck and stagnant. So that was my first noticing of, wow, this is a little bit like a psychedelic journey. And it stayed with me for some time. I remember after leaving the ashram on my way to Nepal, I'm looking out of the train window when we were at the platform at the train station, and the cement is moving like a psychedelic ceremony. I'm actually pretty stoned. Other than being happy, I'm just looking around. Wow, this is trippy.
Yeah. But how amazing would it be if we were all able to oxygenate our bodies a little bit more, and because you feel a connectedness, like a oneness to everything. Because you start seeing that you're in this field that we're all just connected. We're all stardust. And,
and the breathing is a connection to nature. We're exchanging with the plants, and we're in a relationship with them. So everything is in this state of entanglement, which feels like we're all together in this. The oneness is, wow, nice.
Which bleeds into the next chapter, which is your psychology. So if you are able to get this state of oneness and feeling love and happiness, you kind of lift up out of your pain a little bit, and you're able to direct your body in a more self-regulating way instead of destructive way. Would that make sense? Am I making sense of that? Would that be correct?
Yeah, I mean, the breathing physiologically, chemically changes you into this higher oxygen level state, which is more alkaline, which is more healing. But the psychological aspect of the breathing is opening. It's like normally when these people who are breathing 10% of their normal capacity in normal day are, it's subconscious. You're not consciously breathing. It's like your heartbeat. You don't have to make your heart beat. You don't have to make yourself breathe. It carries on anyway, but it's at that minimal level of 10%. So when you start going in there consciously and changing the program to expand your breath, you're stepping into a subconscious program. Literally opening the door to the subconscious. And the psychological effect is that everything that is stuffed into your subconscious now comes through the door. And you become aware of past events, of traumas, of things that have happened to you, of how you felt and didn't want to feel, so you kind of suppress it.
Which is making me sick.
Which ultimately is interfering with all the body processes and leading to long-term health problems.
Yeah.
And you went through the Ekadasi, which is a breathing technique that is specifically designed to push the energy through all the parts of your brain cells that have been blocked because of trauma and bad experiences that you don't want to think about. And that stops the energy from flowing in that part of your brain, which stops the energy from connecting to a connected part of your body. And this is how the disease unfolds over a period of time. And you can't avoid that as you grow older unless you start breathing deep and discharging all these blockages. And this is the psychological part of the breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we covered a lot. Just to reiterate, this chapter 1 was about the breath and the oxygen. We talked about the mechanics. We talked about alkaline versus acidic bodies. We talked about how important movement in the lymphatic system is. Do you have a few examples of some, because you've taken some clients, some cancer patients or some people that have diseases, and you've brought
Terminal diseases.
Terminal.
Yeah.
Can you give a few examples of, and I know there's more, you had, the next is the psychology, what you're eating, but when it comes to just breath, since this is the chapter we're working on, how have you seen, what did they overcome when they were here working on the breath with you?
The first case scenario, one of the women in my yoga classes came after the class and said she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer and wanted her in the hospital within 3 days because it was spreading into her lymph nodes. So I told her not to go and come and hang out at my place, and we did 2 weeks of breathing, Ekadasi. And issues about her childhood and stuff came up, and she cried some about it, and every day she was doing more and more breathing. And she said she felt fine after that, and so she went traveling. I told her not to go back to the same doctors, but to go somewhere else for a second opinion.
Yeah.
And be tested and see how it is. And she was clean. There was no cancer.
No cancer.
No cancer. This goes back 1978. It's a long time ago already. So, and she was fine for years after that, and now, of course, I'm out of touch with her. But
Yeah.
the next time I did something like that was with my mother in 1990s. It was many years later already. My mother was in the hospital dying of lung cancer. They gave her 7 days to live. My mother was a born-again Christian, didn't think much of the yoga thing that I had gotten into. But lying on her deathbed, I said, you don't have to die. There's a way out of this if you want to live more. She was 76 at that time.
You said that to her?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I wouldn't mind staying around longer. So I took her out of the hospital, and I went and spent a week with her, and I showed her how to breathe and the breath retention. Now, the problem she was having is that there are a lot of cancer cells in her lungs, and the cancer cells were leaking out this fluid, which was filling up her lungs, and she couldn't breathe because her lungs are full of water. So I said, okay, we're going to do some breathing and breath retentions. The breath retention, you're locking in, and I was helping her to pick up her shoulders and then relax, just hold the breath, and then let the shoulders back down, which creates more air pressure, and then the air pressure pushes the fluid out. So within a few days, her breath went from very minimal, much less than 10%. We're down to like 3% of it. And every day it got a little bit longer. So within a week, she was breathing very deeply. Went to have some x-rays, and they said, we don't understand what happened, but there's no more cancer in there. There's just a couple of little black spots in your lungs, but there's no cancer.
David, I didn't know that story.
No,
that's so beautiful. Yeah,
it's on the website someplace.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Anyway, that was a profound experience, and people thought, my God, it's miraculous, and all the Christian friends, oh my God, the Lord saved you.
Yeah.
Just breathing. I mean, it's kind of logical. If you put air pressure in, it's going to push the water out.
But we weren't taught these things, and then we have the fear, and then when you're in the hospital and you're hooked up and you want to trust your doctors, I mean, there's so much, it's so unfortunate. But
also what they were feeding her in the hospital, was mostly a really sweet kind of a soy milk concoction, mostly sugar. And I thought, well, cancer cells are going to love this. So when I took her out of the hospital, I put her onto a completely different diet with Chinese herbal teas and some milkshakes that I was making with more, I think I was using organic soy milk, unsweetened, and putting in some of these Chinese herbs. So that was part of it. But the breath,
whole holistic approach to
yeah.
it. Yeah.
I mean, the breath is what every day seeing her breath capacity increase and increase until she was on her deathbed, couldn't walk, couldn't do anything. And within a few days, she's up and around making me breakfast. And
Aw, she's we're not bashing doctors, by the way. I really want to make that clear because we had another conversation about how awesome the Western medicine can be. This is just really about uniting everything together, and it's about how powerful we really are on our own, with our own bodies, and understanding that. So just want to make that clear. So we appreciate all you do, doctors. But so amazing. And how much longer was she around for?
Well, she spent the next year traveling around. My sister took her off to Hawaii to see volcanoes and do all these things. And then my brother lived in the same town, so he was checking up on her every day, making sure she had her healthy teas and drinks and whatnot. And then he had a motorcycle accident, ended up in a coma, and then ended up a vegetable. So he was out of the picture. And then she was on her own. I lived hundreds of miles away and had a family and stuff. So after the next year, she was getting sick again. So I went and got her and brought her back. She got sick because they gave her chemotherapy. Yeah. She didn't have cancer. They couldn't find cancer. They said, well, just in case, we'd recommend the chemotherapy. And after that, she just went downhill. So I brought her back. Okay, let's do it again. And this time she said, well, I think I'm ready to go for my reward now. So she stayed with us for a month, and we gradually observed and helped her to leave her body in a very peaceful way at home with little kids running around and stuff.
Oh, well, she was very lucky to have you.
Yeah, she was very happy to be there and really did not want to go to a hospital again.
Yeah. So it's really important to be our own advocates with our health and empower ourselves.
Yeah, so this is one point. So everybody saw the miraculous recovery, but it wouldn't fit a statistic of a healing because she died a year later. It wasn't from chemotherapy. I mean, it was from chemotherapy, not from cancer. Right. But you can't prove that. And the medical records were denied. You couldn't access them because my brother was the caretaker of my mother legally, and he was a vegetable in the hospital. So
I'm so sorry, yeah.
Anyway, that's one point. There's another, some years later, actually, I don't want to bash the medical system. We've got time for this story. I started this place in Victoria, Canada, called Creative Health Institute, where you create your health.
Oh, cool.
So the initials are CHI, which is cheap, which is cool.
Clever.
And one of the first women who came was a woman with a brain tumor the size of an orange. Wow. It was on the right side, blocking her hearing, so there was something going on in there. And they were going to operate on her for $700,000, take half her brains out, and just... So anyway, Karen came along and said, it's not a very good option. She was 27 years old, had 2 little children. And she said, well, they said I'll probably be in a wheelchair.
27?
Yeah.
Wow. And
chances of living were 80%. So 20% chance you're going to die. So she said, and I'll do something else. And I had this devised after my mother's experience was called the Cancer Remission Program. And this was going back to breathing with a strict diet. I used the macrobiotic brown rice only. I was still using Chinese herbs and things and special teas. But 90% of it is breathing. So, and she smoked a lot. So when we talked, first interview, we talked about smoking and, your lungs need to be used for the healing process. And she just took her cigarettes and threw them on. Oh, we're smoking. So she was, okay. I said, okay, let's do this. And in 2 weeks, the brain tumor went away. Now, I had arranged with the newspaper, the Victoria Times, whatever it was called. I forget the name of the newspaper. And I had arranged to publish the story. And my arrangement with Karen, this woman, was that I want to have your medical records before and after.
Mm-hmm.
So she went back after 2 weeks, did the whole CAT scan and things, and they said, we don't know what happened. It's gone. All there is an outline of where it used to be, but there's no tumor left at all. Whatever you did
Worked.
Yeah, it worked. To carry on. And she said, okay, I just want my medical records now. I talked to you about this before, and so give me the past records and the record from this CAT scan and everything. Okay, we'll have it all ready for you tomorrow. She went back the next morning and said, well, we're sorry, but we seem to have lost all your records.
No.
We have no record of you at all. So
Why do you think they did that?
I think the Medical Association, this is American Medical Association, they feel threatened by someone succeeding with an
Without
alternative.
their having to dish out money to pay for pharmaceuticals. Yeah.
So, I mean, she did fine. She changed her life, was not going back to the old way, and, you know, had her 2 kids to look after, and so, wow, thank you so much, and happy. And she also lost like 40 pounds in those 2 weeks.
Yeah, which
diet. Yeah, she was overweight and big, and there was this feeling just, wow, a whole new life beginning.
Yeah.
So there's a success story which could not be proven.
Mm-hmm.
And the newspaper where I was in touch with the publisher of the newspaper, and it was going into the lifestyle section, you know, big plans, and so, sorry, Dave, I can't publish this without the records. I'll lose my job.
Yeah. Damn.
Which is true. I mean, now things have changed because we've got the internet and we can say whatever we need.
Right.
But the proof of a healing comes from the medical association. They don't want to give you the proof because it doesn't work for them. Then you lose it.
Yeah.
So,
well,
that was another case.
I could ask you, I have so many questions for you, but just to wrap this up, I think one of the main issues is like, you hear about these people that have all this amazing knowledge like you, David, and you tell us to breathe and this is how it'll help you. But how can we just apply it in a simple way? And I know you have a ton of amazing techniques, which I've been lucky enough to experience. But for whoever's watching right now, can you lead us through just like a quick 3 minutes? And we can use me, for example. Let's just say I come to you and I go, I am bordering on being hyperthyroid. That's what my doctors have told me. How can I apply this breath for 3 minutes a day? What should I do?
Okay.
Or someone at home, if they have an ulcer in their belly?
Yeah, well, let's stick with the thyroid thing because we just did a video on thyroid issues and how to get rid of them.
Watch it.
Yeah. So it's not quite finished, but I'll have it up. It'll be on YouTube. I'm trying to hand out this information because the disease factor has come up in society with the coronavirus thing. And I realize, well, people just don't know how to be healthy, how they don't understand how the system works to counteract the virus. We all have these abilities.
Yeah.
But it shuts down when we are in fear and worrying, and public media is pushing all the fear, which is a really bad mistake. They should know better than that because there's enough study done on placebos and nocebos. Negative thinking is not good for you. Anyway, this video is talking about thyroid issues, and because it's oftentimes caused by suppression and you're not speaking your truth, and we have to be quiet from the time we go to school, etc. So we talk about it psychologically. Then we go through, I think, a 30-minute exercise period of exercises with breathing and what to do. And then at the end, I'm putting in a visual concentration that goes with breath to bring the mind into it and disperse past negative thinking and fears and the locked concept of I have a thyroid issue.
Yeah.
In yoga, all these glandular problems and organ problems, it's your glands and your organs, and you learn to work with them and tune them up.
And we have, like we talked about, we have our own system to do that.
Yeah.
We just need to know how to do it.
But we're not taught anything about how to do this. So we've been programmed into, if you have a problem, you got to go to medicine and surgery.
Which can be helpful in
It can,
certain,
yeah.
but before we have to get to that point, let's just try to empower ourselves and fix it ourselves before we have to get to that point.
First thing is we need to take the responsibility for our own health and not be smoking and drinking and eating a bunch of junk food and not breathing and not exercising, and then want the doctor to fix us up.
With a pill.
With a pill. It doesn't work that way. It can be helpful when you need an antibiotic. Go for it. If you have a headache, take a painkiller rather than sit there and suffer with a headache. What the hell? But on the other hand, if you're living in the right lifestyle and you're breathing well and you're relaxed, you don't get the headache. So it's a question of prevention more than anything.
And once you start doing this a lot, your body's going to start to get on board and be like, oh, I'm breathing again. Okay, I can calm down. I can calm my system down. I can go into healing instead of stress.
You realize you can do all these things.
Yeah.
And you gain a little more confidence in your own autoimmune system. And it's good to learn about it too. So I'm putting out videos about the reality of how amazing the autoimmune system is. What its capabilities are, and people don't know, but it's miraculous to see how organized and intelligent the system is, and it's programmed into us. We disturb the program by our negative thinking and by our bad lifestyle habits, etc. Doesn't need to be that way.
So check out all the cool videos. Should we do a quick breath?
Oh yeah.
Sure. Okay. So.
Complete breath, all parts. We divide it in yoga into the 3, abdominal, mid, and upper. And then we unite them into the complete breath, which is called Mahat Yoga Pranayama. And goes from the bottom, middle, and upper. And you exhale from the bottom, squeezing the air back up and out, not down. Not difficult. Again, we're just sitting in a chair doing this. It's not an advanced yoga pose. And I heard a lot of people say, oh, I can't do yoga. I'm too old. Anybody can do this. And it's always beneficial. I want to add one last thing. In some studies in physiology and aging done back in the 80s, I think they studied something like 100,000 old folks and looked at their rate of aging, how old they are, and how much breathing. And it was totally connected. That the older you are, the less you breathe. And the concluding paragraph of the study stated that they could not determine whether the aging caused the shallower breathing or the shallower breathing caused the aging. So I took that seriously and I realized, wow, if you continue to breathe more deeply, then you're going to retard that aging process. And now I'm 71 and I feel the same as when I was 25.
You have more energy than some of us.
Yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Check out more videos. There's so much knowledge, so much empowerment you can give yourself. So thanks, David.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome.